So if you clicked on this video, you're probably trying to do everything right to lose weight. You're probably trying to stick to a certain diet, you're trying to exercise, maybe even being consistent, but except on the weekends and on Friday night, you end up just giving into your cravings and you just completely blow out of the water, and you actually go back a step than going forward because all your progress was wasted just from your cravings. And if you don't fix this could actually cause you down a road of binge eating and eventually gaining so much weight that you are completely disgusted with yourself. And the reason why I know this is because if you don't know me, my name's Dalton, and I used to be a former binge eater, and I want to help you guys out with these 5 tips that have helped me stop binge eating and get over my cravings that can help you guys as well. And the first one that I think is completely overlooked that a lot of people don't consider is what I like to call making bets and not promises. And if you see this, this is me and my friend, and I am not an artist, so I want to show you guys this in simple cartoon drawings. So hopefully it helps. Now let's go to a story that has helped me personally with a different area of my life that can help you with eating. So when I was a kid to a teenager, I used to have an issue with adult films called The Hub, as some people mention it. And if you don't know what this is, don't search it up because it will mess up your life. And it did for me for a very long time. And I just had a really big issue with this. And I ended up talking to one of my friends, and we went to the gym together, and I was like, hey man, and he's like, what's up? And we just kept going back and forth on this issue of, because it really messed me up psychologically. And he was saying, well, have you tried this? Have you tried this to get over this addiction? And I said, no, man, I've tried all these and it just did not work. And we tried coming up to a solution, and I ended up telling him, well, dude, what if I just give you $1,000 every time I do this? And obviously for me, as soon as I said that, I thought that was a really dumb decision, but it actually helped me out in the long run because he ended up saying, great idea. And because he knows he's gonna get $1,000 every time I make this decision. Not within 30 days, but every time I do it within the 30 days. So I was like, shoot, man, I don't want to do this. Like, this is me like totally regretting what I made. But except this totally helped me because throughout that 30 days, I did not decide to go on the Hub once. And this guy, my buddy from, I'm gonna say Jim, was totally surprised, and he actually congratulated me, which I thought was very helpful. And I felt surprised myself. I was like, wow, I can't believe this happened. And for you, how does this relate to not giving into your cravings? Well, for you, this could be in 2 forms of things, such as money, which is what I did, in terms of every time I do something that I don't want to do, I have to give this other person money. Generally, this is someone like a friend or a family member that you trust, or it could be something with time. So let's say, hey, Dalton, I don't have money. What do I do with this? Well, if you don't have a lot of money and you're making these bets, then that's even better because now you have more of a risk to actually lose something. And this is more tangible. This is the benefit of doing bets, is because once you have something tangible, you now understand the severity of your situation compared to not doing this at all. So having some form of money would help in this, but time also works as well, because you could say, for example, hey, Jim, every time I do this one thing, I have to pay to go see you at a country concert or go take you to a country concert. And you hate country, you hate X band, but you do that. And this creates a more tangible option that you think, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And trust me, it definitely works. It's like the same thing when you put, like, let's say a threat for your family. It's very extreme, but if someone threatens you or your family, it's going to be very different than someone just like bullying you and just calling you names. Like, the severity of it is way greater, which allows you to actually make more actions upon it. And what I'm referring to is that I'm referring more of your inputs than your outputs. And so what I told my buddy Jim is that I did not say, hey, I'm going to increase my testosterone by 500%, because I have very little control of that, nor does that really matter in the context. So for you, if the reason why you want to give over your cravings is because you want to lose weight, right? So for this, if you're going to implement the strategy and start taking bets, then you got to focus on having more of the inputs, such as eating healthy, tracking your macros, and choosing to eat healthy foods, and not just focusing on the scale, because there's a lot of things that you can't control, such as your water weight, your overall bowel movements, and a plethora of other things within your body that you just can't control that day. And that's a big part of that for this entire strategy. But even if you make bets, this is only a short-term strategy and you need to have something else in this. So what is the other thing that you could do that could help a lot? And it actually comes within your mindset. And this comes from what I would say is inputs versus outputs. But I did touch on this a little bit just right now, but except I'm referring to a deeper thing that a lot of people tend to not acknowledge until they end up failing over and over and over again, and this is the realization that happens. So the people that are ahead of you, that you actually want to look like, they're not that much farther ahead of you in terms of what they're doing and what they're trying to do. You're only maybe 10 feet behind them in the journey, but the difference is that it's the mindset that got them there to stay there while you and maybe other people that you know are staying in the sidelines or way further back, and you're like, how do I get here? And this ends up coming to how you think of yourself, and the strategy that I'm going to tell you right now is not just what you think about yourself, but it's also what the things that you're focusing on while you are dieting and trying to lose weight. So mostly what a lot of people do is that they think to themselves like, oh, I don't want to have any ice cream. I don't want to have cookies. I shouldn't have this. I shouldn't have any of this junk food. And that is, okay, that's kind of decent as a start, but except it ends up giving you in this trap that what happens is that you just keep focusing on it constantly, and you have this tunnel vision, and you just keep going and going and going, and then once Friday hits, you're super stressed and you just snap, and then you just start eating all the food that you said you wouldn't eat. But except for the people that end up being more successful on this is that, as you see with junk food, JF, and over here is everything else. And they're doing the exact opposite of what you're doing, and that is focusing on the everything else part. So they're not thinking of giving up of, okay, I shouldn't have this cookie or I shouldn't have this cake. They're thinking of, wow, I'm actually eating healthier, and because of this, I'm gaining something out of it. Because if you focus on the actual benefits of what you're having, you realize they're actually greater than the consequences of what you're currently doing or the sacrifices you're making. Because on long term, it's way more beneficial to have. So it gives you a reason to continue going with your why. And it's also much more strong than just saying, oh, I don't want to have ice cream, because that will always just be temporary, as temptations are temporary, hence that. But now that we know what to focus on, which is everything else, you might think to yourself, well, what are those things I actually need to focus on? And for those inputs that you make, changing them drastically could actually cause you to give into your cravings even more, even with this mindset shift. And that is the more practical one, and that is slashing your macros too hard. And for this is like a little angry man, which was me, and this was just an egg because someone told me it would be easier to only eat eggs because they say it's healthier than eating broccoli. Because don't ask me why. It was a very bad story. But for this, generally what happens is that there are different parts of macronutrients that you need just to stay healthy. And there are protein and fats and then carbs, which most of your carbs, if not all, have fiber in them. And for this, generally what people like to do is on the extremes is that they like to say, okay, well, you know, maybe such as like keto people, you don't need to have your carbs at all because fats are your main fuel source. Or you can go the exact opposite, and there's people that will say, like the low fat vegan people, they'll say, oh no, you shouldn't have any fats at all. You shouldn't have avocados. You shouldn't have butter or olive oil or anything like that. And normally, if you're someone that's completely new to dieting and you wanna make sure that you're going on the right track, the worst thing you could do is completely get rid of an entire macronutrient group to stay full and to stay healthy and to stay energized, because your body's not used to that. It's like me telling you, hey, you wake up at 9 a.m. typically or 8 a.m. Let's wake you up at 2 a.m. Most people are not going to get used to that, and they're going to feel totally groggy, annoyed, tired, and you're just not going to enjoy it. And this is the exact same thing with dieting, is that when you completely slash a group out, you're not going to enjoy it. So then what can you do? And let's just say in the practical sense is that you need 200 grams of protein, 50 grams of fat, and about 200 grams of carbs just to maintain your weight. Now, let's say that's the average range for you to maintain your weight, and you want to start losing weight. Then what you could start doing is that you want to have first a balance of these food groups, and then after that, you'll be able to adjust slightly over time. And no, I'm not saying that going keto or carnivore or vegan or any other these diets are really bad. It's more that because a lot of people take the exact extreme to go that far without even understanding what they enjoy, it just starts creating a lot of diet fatigue and a lot of headaches that you just don't enjoy. So for this, normally what I like to say is, what is the easiest for me? Do I enjoy going low fat? Do I enjoy going high fat? Do I enjoy low carb, high carb? These are really things that are up to you once you start getting used to that balanced approach of having macronutrients in a certain ratio, because that is the biggest part of almost all of this. But even if you do have this part of focusing on what macronutrients you have and you're on the right targets, there could be one thing that is the elephant in the room that could completely reverse all of this, and that would actually be what I like to call trigger foods. And this is you with this crazy face and you want to have everything in your pantry because you just can't handle the stress or boredom. And this is why we need to remove these trigger foods. But what I would say is, what is a trigger food? And of course, a lot of people might assume that that's just candy or junk food in general. And you're probably thinking, Dalton, does that just mean I remove these trigger foods or remove this candy in my house? Yes, that is the simple one. But there's a lot of things in your house that might not be considered junk food and actually even healthy for you, but they end up causing you to overeat. And this is why I like to call trigger foods for that reason. And generally, trigger foods come in two ways. Generally, they come in, one is that you decide to eat the food and then it spirals down to another type of food that is actually worse for you, or you just keep eating more of that food, which could cause you to gain weight. So like, let's say for example, you really like peanut butter. And most people like peanut butter unless you're allergic to peanuts. But if you have peanut butter and you enjoy it a lot and you just keep eating and eating and eating it, and then you eat bananas with it and you really enjoy that, and then you end up realizing, hey, I ate 1,000 calories, I didn't even know it. And that's an easy way to just have these trigger foods in your house to completely backset everything you did. But let's say that you have Diet Coke and you enjoy that a lot, but then it ends up getting worse and worse and worse, and you think to yourself, okay, well now I just want a cookie, and then you go have the cookie, and it goes even worse than that. And you could say, oh, but what if I just have more Diet Coke? Yeah, that could be a legit thing, but except it ends up getting worse if you actually don't have that discipline to just have the Diet Coke. But let's say for this, generally the easiest thing to do is to have more space between these things. That's the easy solution to have on this. So instead of you having, let's say, DoorDash on the front of your widget on your phone, you just put that in the trash or you hide it, so it's not easy to just order this stuff online, especially if it's not in your house. But let's say for the next one is you just instead have to go from your house to what I like to call Walmart to get your food. And this would be, let's say it's a 5-mile drive, you're not gonna go from one spot to the next without you consciously thinking about it. Because now, let's say even if you did have the willpower to go to get your peanut butter just to binge eat on it, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm going to the store to eat the peanut butter because I feel sad or something. Like, and you think of this story in your head and you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually thinking about this. And generally, you might not even continue driving the car. You might just go back. And that's happened for me, and it saved me so many times to overcome my cravings. And now that we understand that we need to space these trigger foods, there might be an actual issue that comes up, and that is you are going to eventually go out to a restaurant, you're gonna eat out, and there's gonna be these trigger foods that pop up and you don't know what to do. You're thinking to yourself, God, Dalton, I'm just gonna give in and just go out. Not so fast, sir. We got you right now. And that will be preparing to eat out. And this is going to be you if you don't know what to get on the menu, and this is you crying because you might actually end up eating the foods that you don't want to have and you gain weight. So I'm here to help you out with that. And for this is what the game plan is, and it starts off by going online. And of course, guys, we have the magic thing called the internet where we can actually see things ahead of time when we go to restaurants. And if you go to a place that's more modern or up to date with their food logging systems such as like Chipotle, you can easily use this to see the nutrient calculator to get the macros that you want, as we mentioned in the beginning of this video to find the specific macros that fit your needs or that is the least restrictive to you. So you can go online and you could see the menu, and let's say that your friends want to take you to Olive Garden. They say, hey, you want to go to Olive Garden with us? And you're like, yeah, sure, man, but except I don't really want Olive Garden. I guess I want to see you though, and they only like Olive Garden. And so this is your chance to now go online to see what there is, and then you don't have to mess it up. And this is where you can actually start making your game plan. But except, what do you actually order on the menu? And this is generally what I like to do in this order, is finding foods that are generally low calorie. So foods like, let's say, if in this case for Chipotle, I'm getting like a bowl instead of a burrito, or unnecessary things that just keep adding on more calories, and then have something that's high protein. So for me, getting stuff like chicken, steak, things like that, so I stay full, and that's why you want to have high protein, and generally having whole foods. So of course, let's say for fast food, it's a little bit different, but except in the sake for the Chipotle example, if I go to Chipotle, I can decide to get these certain foods that I enjoy that are high in protein and also low calories, such as like the chicken, the salsa, the beans. Generally, those are things that allows me to stay full without eating too much when I'm going out and about. And because of that, I did this by preparing. And let's say if you're at a other type of restaurant that is way smaller though and doesn't have the nutrient facts and doesn't have all these things, you can kind of just play it out by doing these 3 steps. And also the benefit is that most of these places have a phone number. So what do? You call them. And what you can do is that you can just call them and then say, okay, well, hi, my name's so-and-so, and I want to know just what's on your menu and what does this menu item actually have. And then you could just go from there, and then you can easily just know, okay, well, that's cool, thank you, I would want to get this, and that's basically it. And then now you would know what to get, and you don't have to stress out and like the person in the beginning. And earlier in this video, I mentioned that you need to find a strategy that is the least restrictive to you, because that can easily make or break your diet. But what if I told you that all this is completely pointless until you hone on your overall strategy rather than just having these tips? And if you do want to see an overall strategy that can help you out when it comes to dieting and to lose weight, then you can check out this video right here that goes into some examples that I've seen successful people do when dieting, as well as myself. And if you guys are interested in that, check that video out, and I'll see you there in a second.